Xbox are losing their biggest franchises to PlayStation 5 and the upcoming Switch 2, whatever the hell that thing is. Whatever the hell that thing actually is going to be dropping. This is according to reliable leaker Nate the Hate, who said both Halo, the Master Chief Collection, and Microsoft Flight Sim 2024 are heading to PlayStation 5 in 2025. This led to Windows Central's Jez Corden corroborating and adding that not only are those games coming across, but also Hellblade 2, Gears of War 1 Ultimate Edition, and Age of Mythology are also on their way to not only PlayStation 5, but Nintendo's next system as well. So this is a little joke that's been doing the rounds in terms of Xbox's marketing, saying that everything is an Xbox, including PlayStation and Nintendo consoles.
Hey.
What do you think about the future of gaming?
I don't mind it.
No, it's
truth
good.
Be told. I understand why, if you're an Xbox diehard, you will be lamenting some of these franchises coming to PlayStation. I think with the steps that Microsoft have been making over the past 6 months and their multi-platform approach and announcing stuff like Indiana Jones that will be coming to PlayStation soon after it launched on Xbox last year. We've got Doom the Dark Ages coming up. We've got Call of Duty, which is going to be multi-platform for the next 10 years. I think, to me, it's not a surprise anymore to see more announcements, especially of older games like the Master Chief Collection. And I know it's a big deal that Halo in particular may be coming across.
Halo and Gears feel huge,
100%. But at this point, I don't think Microsoft or Xbox as a brand is precious about those earlier iconic titles. Nowadays, Gears, Halo, they do sit side by side with Bethesda, Doom, Starfield, whatever it is. So why wouldn't they come just out of some, in their minds, I imagine, old-fashioned ways of thinking about consoles and console wars?
Well, that's the fascinating thing, is that if you've grown up with this industry for so long, like as we have, we remember the console wars, we remember the associations of Halo and Gears and Xbox and how powerful those combinations used to be, how big the marketing was, how associated those brands were, and how blasphemous the idea of crossover was. However, I'm so ancient that I remember Final Fantasy on Nintendo, Final Fantasy on PlayStation, and then how big of a deal it was that Final Fantasy went back onto Xbox after being associated with PlayStation for so long across the late 90s and 2000s. So this stuff just happens a lot. I do wonder, though, that, have they tried getting Game Pass on to PlayStation? And I had a conversation with Nintendo, and on the Sony side, especially if it was during the Jim Ryan era, it would have just been a stonewall no. But I wonder if this is the best thing they can do. Because my assumption was always that they were building Game Pass, they're building a subscription library, and then you just have that be an access point everywhere, which is what they're doing in terms of this phone is an Xbox and things like that. You're not downloading, you're accessing a streaming platform. Which makes sense. Like, that's a really good deal for people, and that's a really good way to get those games and everything. But I wonder if PlayStation are like, that's a step too far. Like, we're not going to have an executable on the PlayStation dashboard that is then a streamable library of stuff that you could buy on the PlayStation Store, but we will take separate games with separate price points and we'll take a cut because it's on the PlayStation Store. You
know what? I don't think it actually benefits Microsoft from putting Game Pass on PlayStation.
Right.
And hear me out. This is what I mean by this. Like, Xbox's one killer thing, one reason to buy an Xbox, or anything that is an Xbox, whether it's PC, phone, whatever, anything with like the Xbox branding, any way you can get Game Pass, let's say, like that is now maybe their only unique selling point and reason to get one of their machines, that you can get the likes of Doom, Call of Duty, Indiana Jones, whatever it is, day one on Game Pass. And I think if you brought that over to PlayStation, that would be sort of the death knell for Xbox as a system, as a console. You would have no reason to choose that over a PlayStation other than allegiance to the brand or a preference for, some of these minor, smaller, in the grand scheme of things, sort of features. So I think this way, if they release games on PlayStation but don't bring Game Pass over, they have an alluring USP for their own set of systems. They have their own revenue stream over here, but they essentially just get extra and free money from selling those first-party games on PlayStation, where you take a nice cut of the price and you're not encouraging people wholeheartedly to jump ship. I don't think Game Pass might not massively get people to buy an Xbox over a PlayStation, but it's something that they have right now, and I don't think you'd want to give that up, because even though they are seemingly getting out of the console business in the way that we have associated them with it over the past 20 years now, I don't think they're willing to go that far yet, but that's just my theory on
No,
the
and
whole
that makes sense. I was thinking that you could do some sort of, you have Game Pass on PlayStation, Game Pass on a Nintendo system, and somewhere in there, you're just reminding people that Xbox exists. You've got the Xbox branding, maybe you've got different deals, maybe you save more money, different bundle deals, whatever it is on Xbox. Things that remind you that the Xbox is doing well. Like there's all the statistics coming out of 2024 of how little Xbox systems sold. Like there's that whole ongoing thing of how these days it seems like the industry is a big showdown between PlayStation and Nintendo yet again. Like the 90s or whatever. And so it's a bit more like that, where Xbox are almost accepting their position, which Phil Spencer has said, like, we're in third place kind of thing. I do wonder as well that, because back in the day, the idea of Halo or Gears, jumping ship would have been like, oh my God, it's the end of days. But you're right, the staff turnover, like, the amount of people who have left over the years, whether it's people who helmed those original franchises or who were there for the beginning, first 10 years or whatever of Xbox, they're just not there anymore. Phil Spencer, obviously he's there, like, but other people, I can't think of the dude's name, Aaron Greenberg, people who helmed the whole brand or whatever. Maybe it just doesn't mean as much anymore. I mean, clearly it doesn't, but like that idea of like, why not? We might as well put a Halo game on PlayStation.
Yeah, and I do also think that, for as much as we associate Gears and Halo as, the crown jewels of Xbox, the reason to get an Xbox, at least back in the day, were to play games like that, but especially those two franchises. I just don't think... It pains me to say it because it's indicative of how the industry has gone and how the business around it works now. I don't think those franchises are big enough commercially to justify them for Xbox, by the way. Right. I'm not saying they should go multi-platform. I'm just saying in terms of Microsoft looking at the raw numbers, putting Gears and Halo, which are huge, up against Call of Duty and World of Warcraft and the stuff in Activision Blizzard, right? You can sell 15 million copies of Halo, 20 million copies of Halo, like if it's at its prime. But that no longer competes and no longer necessarily brings over to people to Xbox in the same way that if you made Call of Duty exclusive, it would. If you made Blizzard's games, it would, right? So I think that's definitely something to factor in, that I don't think the industry now cares about those one-time sales as much, and especially if you're not making the highest ceiling of money, Halo isn't as quote-unquote valuable.
No,
anymore.
not at all. Not at all. And I was a Halo died. Both these, I grew up on Xbox. Like Halo and Gears were like, you lived for those releases. Like especially the rollout of the initial trilogy. But that was so long ago. Like we're talking 20 plus years ago now. Multiple generations have come up on different franchises, different things, and they're just not going to care. The Fortnite Roblox generation is not going to care about this stuff, but that's also not necessarily who it's for. But in terms of franchise power, it is worth just acknowledging that like Halo and Gears aren't Halo and Gears anymore, by a long shot.
100%, man. And it's not, I'm not here being like an Xbox hater or a hater of those franchises. Gears is my franchises. It is my franchises. It's my franchise. It's in my top 5 ever, right? I loved Gears 5. It's one of the reasons I bought an Xbox One to play that thing. I cannot wait for Gears of War E-Day that hopefully will be dropping this year. I think it is excellent. I think it is, to pardon a dated pun, unreal, right? But I have to acknowledge that in terms of sales, in terms of that commercial viability, like if you're Microsoft and you're trying to recoup billions upon billions of dollars from the acquisitions you've made over the past few years, if you look at maybe the 15 million copies that something like Gears would sell, why not put it on PlayStation to get an extra 5, to get an extra, percentage of sales, if you're not looking at it as a major live service that's going to bring you in billions upon billions. Where it's at now, when you don't have necessarily the new fans coming in and you're relying on the older heads who really enjoyed it back in the day, those we probably hit a limit on how many consoles you're going to sell with Gears and how many copies you're going to sell with Gears, and it's not indicative of the franchise. That just happens to long-running series like this. I mean, compare it to something like Sony puts out, a God of War. That is incredibly successful. Again, it doesn't do Call of Duty numbers, right?
No, that's true. I mean, although it's in microtransactions and the wider expenditure and everything, but spending. But I do wonder, I was just thinking of what they represent as games, as a genre. Sony doesn't have a premium first-party, first-person shooter. Everyone talks about the idea of Killzone returning. It ain't Killzone. But that idea, and same with cover shooters or like you've got so many third person games like The Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima, like that tends to be their bread and butter, but they're not dedicated third person shooters. Like there are shooting elements in them, but it's not the same thing. Whereas Xbox, you can plug both these franchises in. And I know there's more mentioned here, like I said, Hellblade and Age of Mythology, but if you put Halo and Gears on PlayStation, it almost opens up a whole new realm of thought where it's not obviously it would be third party on a PlayStation system, but it almost feels like you're getting first party premium top tier stuff on the system, and it's plugging gaps that weren't there, but that are there right now. And they're not going to be plugged by Sony first party anytime soon. So you might as well, quote unquote, put Halo on PlayStation and see what people think of it. And the version of the Master Chief Collection today is infinitely more robust than it was back in 2016 or 18 or whatever it was.
And hopefully, and again, I hate that Microsoft is in this position where they find themselves needing to do this, but everything did change with the acquisition of Activision Blizzard. The demands for returns now are so much higher than they were when you were buying Double Fine and Obsidian, studios that I absolutely love, but again, aren't on the level of Call of Duty commercially, so you're not expecting that back. Something like Hellblade 2, a game I enjoyed, but was a little bit disappointed with. Like, it makes an interactive movie that I absolutely love. Enjoyed. But something like that, right, in development for many, many years, probably cost Microsoft way more than they ever got a return on in terms of the actual game itself, its commercial performance. Stuff like that. If the third-party approach to publishing, if putting something like that on PlayStation allows that team to survive in the current era and keep making weird niche games like it, it would be, I wouldn't love it, but it would be something that I accepted.
It takes care of the numbers.
Exactly. If this helps the likes of, Hi-Fi Rush and Double Fine or whatever manage to survive in the modern Microsoft Activision Blizzard King conglomerate, then okay, that's what you got to do. If you can promise me that the experiment won't result in them failing and being shut down anyway, okay.
And like you said, the bulk of the value on Game Pass is still tied to mainly the Xbox console, or that something that is has more Xbox branding to it or association with Windows or Microsoft or whatever. I want to end though. Do you think PlayStation fans even like Halo right now?
I think so. I mean,
if you launch Halo, Master Chief Collection, first 4 games, you put them out in 2025, do those shooting mechanics hold up? Because the main comparison is going to be the Call of Duties. It's like, I love me some Halo, but that is a very specific PC of the time style shooter.
Yes. Yeah. Well, here's the thing, right? You're asking someone who was a diehard Xbox fan from the Xbox original generation through to the 360, who lived through all of those Halo releases. I'm probably a bad person to ask because Halo was never my franchise.
Right,
I never even necessarily loved those games at the time. Right. I quite enjoyed Halo 3 multiplayer, but I was a Call of Duty guy, man. I was a Gears of War guy. Just wasn't my thing. So.
I wonder how much it'll feel like when we got like Half-Life 2 on PS2.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, this is a big deal, is it? Okay.
I don't think the sales expectations should be too high for something like the Master Chief Collection. I think they should be when you launch the next Halo, whatever that may be. But like you said, it's an old game based on older games anyway. It's the same with Hellblade. I can't imagine they're going to expect to bring that over and sell 50 million copies on PlayStation.
God, no.
It's kind of smaller games in terms of their scope, not the big new stuff. They haven't announced yet Gears E-Day coming over. It's Gears of War 1 Ultimate Edition, right? It's like these older titles, these remasters and stuff. But as a PlayStation fan now, or at least someone who primarily plays on PlayStation now, I'm interested in seeing how many people will prefer to play these games on PlayStation, and the games that I mean are Indiana Jones, stuff like that. Because to me, I probably wouldn't have played Indiana Jones if I didn't have both consoles and I had to buy it for 70 quid on the PlayStation. Yeah. That was a perfect Game Pass for me. And as long as Xbox is able to keep that cadence of releases with the likes of Avowed coming next week, and later on in the year with Fable,
next
month.
Oh God,
next month. It might as well be next week. Avowed coming next month. Yes. Fable later on in the year. Perfect Dark, etc., etc. As long as they keep those cadences of releases, I will always own an Xbox because Game Pass is too good of a deal in that regard, where I can just get that subscription and not have to pay 70 quid a pop for games that I otherwise might not have been entirely convinced by. So with that in mind, I do think Game Pass on Xbox gives it an edge over them going completely full-on third-party, because those games still cost a lot of money, and it'll be interesting to see how many people buy Indiana Jones, how many people buy whatever it is coming to PlayStation across this year.
It is insane, not to Paul Rudd meme this, but it is like who'da thunk? Like
who'da thunk?
That eventually, I mean, it's been 20 years or whatever till the heyday of both these franchises. I'm focusing on Halo and Gears because they are the pillars.
Yeah.
That's like Mario and Zelda going across. Like, it's insane that we've got here. There's nothing necessarily wrong with it, but it is fascinating having grown up with all of this stuff for so long.
I don't want to undersell it, and I feel like I have been this entire segment by saying, it makes sense financially. It'll blow my mind if I am sat down on a PlayStation 5 playing through the campaign of Gears of War 1. That will be unfathomable.
With all the button
almost.
prompts, like take couple of X instead of A.
And I know I think there was a PS3 build back in the day.
There was always a thing,
didn't actually happen, but still, it's at the point, like you said, within the culture, within the memories of players like you and I, and you engaging with this at home, like Gears is so entrenched with Xbox, it will be mad to see that if it is running on PlayStation hardware.